There was a lock-in.
Okay.
There's a lock.
All right, we got it, 6:30. Okay, there we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council of Universal City, Texas. It is Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. I'll call this meeting to order now at 6:30 p.m. and for quorum check, please.
Mayor Williams?
Here.
Mayor Proclama?
Here.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Here.
Councilmember Maxwell?
Here.
Councilmember Adjournment?
Here.
Councilmember Shelby?
Here.
Councilmember Boley? Here.
Quorum is present, we shall proceed. The invocation this evening will be given by Councilmember Jarian, and I'll lead us in the pledges. Would everyone please stand?
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allowing us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that affect the citizens of this city. May we act wisely and well and continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of our great community. We also ask, Lord, that you watch over, protect, and bless all of our first responders, active military, and veterans of this great country. We ask all these things in your glorious name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the life of the flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Well, thank you for attending this evening. I really appreciate you coming here to join us this evening. We've got another day and a little bit more before we get some more really phenomenal, fun weather that we get to deal with. Let's hope it's going to be quite a bit different than it was last year at this time. But we're going to cope with it, and I know I can tell you our city is definitely prepared in case something happens. So let's move on now to the next item, which is tab A, which is to consider the minutes of the Tuesday, January 18, 2022 City Council meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember, was it Adjournment? Yes. Second by Councilmember Goolsby. Any discussion further? All right, call the roll, please, Chris.
Councilmember Adjournment?
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Mayor Proclama?
Aye.
Councilmember Maxwell?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby?
Aye.
Councilmember Boley? Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. We'll move on now to our next item, which is citizens to be heard. As you can see, it's time provided for citizens to address council on issues or concerns. It needs to be informative only. No council discussion or action takes place at these sessions. But we certainly welcome the comments of our citizens, and there have been 4 that have signed up this evening, and I'll call you up in the order that you sign up on the sheet. First person this evening is Ms. Kim Iglehart. Ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Kim Iglehart. I live at 736 Garden Meadow Drive. Section 1.02 of the city charter reads in part, all powers of the city shall be vested in an elective council, hereinafter referred to as the city council, which shall enact local legislation, adopt budget, determine policies, and appoint the city manager. All powers of the city shall be exercised in the manner prescribed by this amended charter, or if the manner be not prescribed, then in such manner as may be prescribed by ordinance, the state constitution, or the statutes of the state. As all of you already know, the power to control the agenda is the power to control. We see this play out at the state and national level, with bills never making it to the calendar or never getting voted out of committee. You, the city council, represent us, the people of Universal City. State law won't allow you to discuss city business outside of this room. And a personnel memo written in 1987 is restricting you from discussing it inside the room. It's time that we allow you, our council members, the latitude to do that which we elected you to do, discuss city business. I emailed all of you this past week, and as you can see, our sister cities welcome council member input in creating their agendas. I am asking that you put this subject on the agenda for the next council meeting so that we can discuss relaxing the restrictions placed on this body 35 years ago. That memo needs to be rescinded and the new rules need to be codified by ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your comments. Next individual this evening is Mr. Ed Cabrera, right?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Ken, for giving me an opportunity to introduce myself to your community. I'm Ed Cabrera. I'm running for Congress, District 28, which your city is part of. I am a Republican running against Henry Cuellar. He's the incumbent, and I'm sure you've seen some of the recent developments. I'm here in the community to tell the folks what I stand for, who I am, and then hopefully they'll come out and vote and support myself. A little bit about myself. I'm a Cuban immigrant. Came over as a political refugee back in the 60s. They had a formal program. I became an engineer, worked in McAllen, Texas for many years. Met my wife. She's a local girl, Yellow Rose from Mission, Texas. I have 4 children. Went to Harvard Business School, graduated in '87. My classmate was George Bush. Don't hold that against me. Some people are not big Bush supporters, but I worked on Wall Street for 35 years. I ran Latin America for Merrill Lynch. Retired about 4 years ago, down to the Valley. I own a ranch down in Lynn, Texas. I've always owned that ranch. I actually was commuting back and forth like a congressman does from New York. It's not my favorite place. Too many liberals, too many progressives in New York. So I was sort of doing the Renter Texan thing. Retired 4 years ago and looked around and realized, the Democrats have been running this district for 50 years. The Republicans never won. And Henry was in trouble. He basically, had a young lady who's a socialist that basically gained 3,000 votes from beating him. Now she's actually surging, given the recent raid that they had on Henry Cuellar's home in office. She's actually 7 points ahead. So it's a very important election for this district. We're trying to decide whether, we're going to select a progressive, a socialist, AOC 2.0, or we're going to bring new ideas from the Republican side. And I believe I have some of those ideas. For us, border security is critical. I live 30 miles from the border, and we're being overrun. And that's one of the reasons I'm running. I'm very concerned about our soldiers, our military, our veterans. That's a second issue that's very critical to me. And I'm working very hard with some of the folks around Randolph Air Force Base to develop ideas to make sure that Randolph Base, which is on a blacklist of closing, that doesn't happen. So everyone in this area is impacted by what's going on in Randolph Air Force Base, and I'll be there fighting for you. So just a little bit about me, and thank you so much for the opportunity to say hello to your community. It's a wonderful community. We've been block walking, and I'm very proud that you guys are in my district. So thank you so much, Ed Cabrera. If you want more information, it's Ed Cabrera for SouthTexas.com, and Facebook the same handle. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming down. All right, thank you very much, sir. Next individual that's signed up is Mr. Bernie Rudolph.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. First of all, I will take by email any questions you have on the 20 years survey or review of the budget that I prepared for council last time. Again, I feel it's incumbent upon council in order to take a stand to balance the budget for the enterprise operation, which is the golf course. Lacking to date, after 20 years of operation, is a discrete and doable business plan. Income, expenses, long-term expenses with personnel, etc. So I have not seen that. I've asked for it repeatedly over the last 6 months and I've not gotten it. In my review of the past budgets and over a period of time, essentially I found that there's something called an amended budget. The amended budgets in the past went along with essentially the audit reviews. So we knew essentially as citizens the line item numbers that were associated with revenues and expenses for the city. And it was very, very helpful. However, it's very difficult to get that information these days. I'm not sure exactly why, but it's hard to come by. So what I'd like to suggest is that in the amended budget, which is what the city has prepared in the past, goes on to the website with the audited, official audit information for that year. The other thing that I'd like to ask is, I'd like to ask today for the comprehensive plan committee date, review date, and how citizens participate that. Ditto for the date of the budget workshop. I've heard council members and even the mayor say, well, you know, members of the city, the residents of the city, you should have been at. Well, let's get that information out there long enough ahead of time so that we know about sole source contracts again. I did some quick calculations on the sole source contract for waste management. Conservatively, I estimate that their revenue will be somewhere in the order of $10 million for the 5-year period. Probably more than that. I would like to know, since it was never reported before this council, what the revenue stream is for the past waste management contract and the projected revenue stream for the current waste management project. So we don't have to deal with these small amounts of money for picking up trash at the for people who simply can't move trash for themselves. We're talking about $10 million, minimally, my estimate. I could be wrong, but I'm not going to be wrong by much. With $10 million, you know how much it costs for a trash truck? $250,000. Okay, now let's add to that essentially wages to take care of that. Goodness gracious, we have the ability to essentially do our own waste management contract as an enterprise operation that would make money rather than lose money. Okay, so if you're not going to look at other providers for waste management resources, for goodness sakes, let's stop the hemorrhage of funds from that
I need
area.
to wrap up your comments, sir.
Okay.
You've gone a minute or so over, and I'm fine with that, but would you please wrap up?
Okay, I was looking at the 1 second. So, in essence, every time that council and the citizens vote on using tax resources, remember that when you take away that tax money, it's a negative incentive for investments within the community. Okay? So how does essentially the government promote investments? They give money back to the people, not take it away. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your comments, Mr. Rulo. The next individual signed this evening, Mr. Stephen Buck.
Good evening, Stephen Buck. I live at 8603 Phoenix Avenue in the wonderful city of Universal City. Mr. Mayor, council members, Madam City Manager, fellow members of this great city of Universal City, a member of which I am so honored to be. I want to take a moment to introduce Kelby. Many of you know her from the animal shelter here in Universal City as Stella. We adopted her on Wednesday, and she is the newest member of our house. So I want to take a moment to say thank you to the City Council, to the City Manager, to all the employees and very generous volunteers at the Universal City Animal Shelter for everything that they're doing to take care of this and to enable us to have such a wonderful animal and to be part of our new household. I also want to take a moment to say that I just submitted my application for a place on the City Council ballot for May 7th. I would be honored to be a member of this council if the council and the city members and the members of this community wish to see that happen. So I thank everybody very much for your time. I look forward to working with everybody in the future, assuming a positive outcome for me, and look forward to representing the citizens of Universal City. Thanks for your time, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Please vote on it. Thank you for adopting it.
Absolutely.
Everybody gets involved in it. Thank you very much. Okay, those are the only individuals that signed up this evening. Would anybody else like to address council that didn't get a chance to sign up? Yes, sir. Come on up. Give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Richard Edwards. I live at 209 Trudy Lane. Please take no offense to this address. I am not here to criticize, but to advocate you. Since 1987, this body politic has been restrained by rules which prohibit a council member from introducing items on the agenda without a majority concurrence and allowing the city manager to add items at will. I contend this is not consistent with faithfully representing the public. Short of a considerable outcry, the only entity being duly represented is the municipality. As council members, the consensus of the public is that you are elected to represent both we the people and the city, and that the people should come first and foremost in all considerations. How can you under these rules? I argue, and I ask for your full contemplation, that all agenda items, except in the event of an emergency, be added only during open session at the request of any council member for consideration at the next regular session following, and that all council members be allowed to add items to the agenda without a majority vote. Though this may prove bothersome at times, all measures which may affect the city at large should be heard and carefully considered with prudence and attentive care, not be rushed through on 3 days' notice or nullified with a premature vote. Both this council and the public deserve reasonable time to research each item and form a reasonable opinion. Therefore, I appeal to each and every one of you, separately and together, to step forward and correct this policy. In the name of the people of Universal City, please remove this hindrance and allow yourselves the capacity to rightly represent us all. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else want to address council at this time? Okay, I can reflect one of your questions there. In all the years that many of us have served on here, there has never been an issue related to agenda items, and I appreciate you bringing up that you're concerned about that. Well, we've never encountered a difficulty in getting items placed on the agenda, so I just want you to be aware of that. But again, obviously, I appreciate your comments related to that, so thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, let's pass on then. We move on then to our business of this evening. First is tab number B. Consider Resolution 902-2022. It's a resolution of the City Council of Universal City to appoint Dr. Chichi Wundawu as the official health authority for the City of Universal City and setting an effective date. I think you know that she's the health director for the city of the county.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a reappointment, as you know. Strangely enough, during COVID, we did a renewal, and here we are 2 years later. Thankfully, we have the same health official, because you know they've had some issues there. So this is a reappointment for another 2 years, and so this will come back before you on May of 2024.
Okay, any comments for Ms. Turner on this particular issue? Yes, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what happens if we don't accept this person as our?
So that means if we have any epidemics or anything that takes place just in Universal City, we have no medical authority to go to. And I'm not talking food sanitation, I'm talking maybe, I don't know, we get outbreaks of chicken pox or measles or some other communicable disease at a place that this is the people that investigate it and act on our behalf.
And you have to accept the one that shoved it at you? No, not.
She's the head, but we always go with whoever's in charge.
Okay.
We had Dr. Guerrero,
Guerrero.
gosh, for probably
He
25 years.
just passed away recently.
Yes, he did
Fernando
pass away.
Guerrero.
Okay, thank you.
3 years.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Member Pro Tem Neville, second by Councilmember Shelby, and we have
I have
a
a
discussion.
How busy did we keep Dr. Wu?
How busy do we keep her?
How busy over the pandemic did we keep Dr. Wu working?
Us in particular, not busy. The coronavirus in general, exceptionally busy. I'm quite certain that she and her staff got very little sleep for long
I'm
periods
sure.
of time. Yeah.
But she didn't have too much to do with us.
We had no interaction with her whatsoever other than periodically she would get on the line with all of the mayors and the city managers from the various cities to give us an update.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, call for the vote then, please, Chris.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby,
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby,
No?
Councilmember Maxwell,
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian,
Aye.
Councilmember Boley.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Then we'll move on to item number C, which is to consider resolution 933. It's a resolution calling a general election to be held on May 7th, 2022, to elect city officers and approving and authorizing contract documents and procedures related thereto.
Thank you, Mayor. Another perfunctory item, so we do need to call for the election so that we can make sure that we get on the ballot for the general election as for early voting as well as for election day.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Maxwell, second by Councilmember
Najarian.
Najarian. All right. Discussion, anyone? All right, let's call for the vote, please, Chris.
Councilmember Maxwell,
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville,
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby,
Aye.
Councilmember Boley.
Aye.
Okay, it's set. May 7th will be the election, and of course, this is one with the county as well, and other issues. We all discussed it on that, so I don't know if there's any school board with Judson or Sir Civilo, but anyway, it will be an election to be on May the 7th. Very good, thank you very much. Okay, tab number D, consider approval of pay estimate number 3, invoice for the West Byrd Drainage Project Phase 2. Ms. Turner?
Thank you, Mayor. If you go to the third or fourth page, it tells you all of the people who will be on there. It'll be quite a long ballot.
It's a huge ballot. If you get a chance to look at it, there are many, all the municipalities are directly involved with this in the county. So they will all be having their election on May the 7th.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is for the West Byrd Drainage Project, which we used to call the Northview Parkview. This is actually like Phase 15, but it's West Byrd Drainage Project Phase 2. So this is for pay estimate number 3 to R.L. Rohde in an amount of $85,610.40. And then after this, we probably expect about 3 more pay applications, and we should be done with that section of the project. And I know the residents over there will be very happy to have their driveways back.
Move for approval.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Goolsby, second by Councilmember Maxwell. Discussion, anyone? Again, this is a great opportunity. The community development block grant monies that are applied, that we get from the county. It's allowed us to do phenomenal repair work that we could have never afforded on our own. So for you in the audience, I just want you to be aware of that. This has been a blessing for us from the county. So, having heard no other discussion, let's call for the vote, Chris.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Maxwell,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville,
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby,
Aye.
Councilmember Boley.
Aye.
Okay, and I thank our county commissioner, Mr. Calvert, who gets this, and is currently is the one that helps get appropriate those funds for us in Universal City. All right, tab E, discuss and consider ordinance 308-A-2022. It's an ordinance to amend codified section 3-4-37, excuse me, which says no parking zones, to establish official no parking zones, to establish that certain sections of Villa Drive in the city of Universal City, Texas, setting an effective date and amending the code of ordinances accordingly. And this is our first reading. Would you please describe that for us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So as you may remember, a few years ago, we have provided a conditional use permit for the storage facility there, and they picked up some property on Pat Booker Road and put it into their property. And the condition that we placed is that the vehicles that they lease out, the U-Haul vehicles, that they would not be parked on the city streets. Well, what happens is people come in and they start dropping their stuff off long before they open or long after they close, so they can just get rid of their vehicles, and so they're dropping them all over on Villa Drive. So the issue that we're having is twofold. One, we have people that live in that area, the apartment complex in particular, that are allowed to do some on-street parking, but they can't get parking because there's U-Hauls everywhere. The other thing that we have is the U-Hauls are being parked on both sides of the street, and the area to get through is very narrow, so it causes a visibility issue for motorists. And our bigger concern is that if we had to get a fire vehicle through there, we have enough room, but they don't know who's coming on the other side because they can't see. So what we're proposing in the 100 block going north and south, that we will designate that as a no parking zone, leaving the area in front of the apartment complexes open, and that way we'll have a clear visibility at the intersection. It does require 2 readings.
All right. Let me take a motion, then we'll have discussion.
Move for approval.
Okay, Councilmember Shelley, and second by Councilmember Maxwell. Now discussion. Ms. Foley.
I drive down this road all the time. I've also seen people working on cars on that road.
Okay.
But this should stop it with the no parking on that side.
Yeah, well, they won't be able to park.
So if somebody does bring their U-Haul back after hours, what are they going to do?
If someone does.
If they bring their U-Haul back.
And they leave it there, well, then the police have the option of towing it. A no parking zone is a no parking zone.
So the business needs to get the word out better to their people.
Yes, or they need to open their gate earlier or have their manager there, or inform their customers to only bring them back during business hours, or have them brought in through the Pat Booker roadside like they had indicated they would.
If you recall, this was a major topic of discussion when we looked at this issue some years ago, and we all expressed concern about this, and it's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yes, Mr. Shelley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In a way, I want to run the idea by about if we're going to stop in front of the apartments on the north side of Villa,
Yes, sir.
that we do some type of sign that says no commercial vehicles for the rest of it, because all they're going to do is slide down that side and park in front of this apartment complex.
Well, let me see what it says. It says commercial.
I mean, I'm fine with no parking in the red lines that we have in
Right,
there.
I understand what you're saying.
But I just see them moving down the street further.
Okay, that's a good point. I will bring that up with Randy, and we'll have
That's
something
a
addressed
very
in the
valid
second
point.
reading.
So we can address it in a
No
second.
commercial, I don't know what the coloring is for that, but I'll talk with Public Works, and we'll consider in front of.
You're right. This is the
Yeah,
first
I mean,
reading. We can initially address it in the
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I remember specifically having this comment. I know you just mentioned this, but I'm going to say it again. We specifically told them we didn't want to see this happen.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to give them any more leeway in front
And
of
a
that.
lot of the U-Haul vehicles and trailers, they're not actually, I'm guessing based on gross weight or whatever the term is they use, commercial. They may just be street vehicles, but we'll look at it and figure out what wording we can put in place.
I'm sure if we put something on there residential, it's obvious that a U-Haul parked overnight or in the evening hours is not, does not belong. And the only exception I see to that is somebody who's moving into the apartments. That would only be the difficulty, is if they're renting the U-Haul for the night, they're gonna load up in the morning and drive out in the morning. That may be the only problem we run into, but I think it'll probably be pretty
Yeah, and the
obvious.
apartments in that general area, they're the only ones that have street front. Everybody else is on the adjoining street.
I just don't want somebody find a loophole.
Good point, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy.
I just kind of reiterate what he said, because I had the same question, because it says, putting no parking zones, that the vehicles block the view of the motorists coming in and out of the residents and apartments. And the way this looks, we've got no parking all the way on the other side, which doesn't block a view, any views of the residents going into that residence or out of the residence. And then it talks about residents being able to park on the side of that road, and no parking would not work for any of that. So I wanted to put if we could possibly go to no commercial, because I think that would just mess everybody up, putting a specific no parking all the way on the whole side of the other side of the apartments. Big long line on Villa. South side.
North or south side?
South side. Yeah, it's all the way on the street, and like I said,
Yes.
specifically it read, it blocks the view of residents getting in and out of it. Well, that side wouldn't, but at the
Right.
same time,
We're only
if
talking
we
about the
put
north
that
side.
on there, then residents wouldn't be able to park their personal vehicles. And I would think a U-Haul, everybody would know that is not a personal vehicle. I don't know how we would specifically stipulate the difference between the two, but it seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, well, it seems straightforward, but we'll go back to the transportation code and figure out how they designate the difference between commercial and non-commercial vehicles.
I just wanted to make sure I understand when y'all are asking, you want to distinguish commercial vehicles for this specific parking zone, is that right?
No, so just for the portion that has not been marked in red on there, so there's a strip of curbside in front of the apartment complex that's not marked, that wasn't going to get a no parking sign in front of it, which we obviously want to have the residents that live there be able to park in front of the apartments. What we don't want to have happen, as I've seen everywhere else, when you put a no parking zone, all they do, I mean, because these are people, they don't care, they're just going to drop that vehicle as close as they can to the business. And so what I want to avoid them doing is, instead of parking right there in front of the U-Haul store or across the street from it, they don't just slowly start sliding down the street back towards North Boulevard.
Here, where they're trying to get in, they're just bring their vehicles over here, so work with them to see.
Take one?
Okay. Paul, you want to
Well,
continue?
then maybe we are not talking about the same thing specifically, because we don't have it up on the board, but I was talking about the full red line on the south side here, when this says it specifically blocks the vision for the entrance of the residents in the apartment complex, which is on the other side. That wouldn't restrict that. I would hate to restrict that whole thing for possible residence park too. That's why just making that whole side on this one side, I agree with all that, I agree with that, but making this all on one side from year to year.
The south side of the village.
The south side, I don't get the point of that at all.
Oh, blocking the parking on the south side of the
It's
village.
just to make it extremely no parking period.
It's a narrow
I think would
street.
be a total
It's a narrow
hindrance.
street to begin with.
End up being a hindrance to the people at the Mesa Apartments.
And you also have to remember that this is one of the main roads to get to North Boulevard, which is also one of the main roads to get to UC Park and to Red Horse Park. So you're correct, it is just it's not a main arterial, it is a narrow road. But we do need to keep as much visibility as we can. And then you'll see that it's on an arc too, so it's just got a lot of issues.
It's also used to go to the post office.
Ms. Goolsbee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe if it's the area that's in front of the apartments, that's the north side, and then match that on the south side, which you were thinking about with what you were talking about, making a no commercial parking on the south side. So that allows the residents more opportunities to park.
Okay, but the residents aren't parking on the south side right now, they're only.
So
They're
all
like the
on
rest of
one
us,
side.
they can get a little lazy too, you want to get as close as you can to your front door, to
I don't
HEB or to the unit. They're not parking on the north side, they're parking right next to the apartment complex.
Okay.
Because they park around the street, around the
Okay,
block as
so
well.
residents
They're
aren't.
typically not there. But really, the no parking for the U-Hauls isn't specifically with the people who live on, I don't know what street that is, it's not Village Drive, but you turn right and then you turn right again. They have their little area. That means they would have parking butting up against their single-family homes.
We're gonna try to call this chart up for you so you guys, all of you in the audience can see it.
Well, they have it in their
Discussion.
packets as well, sir.
It's in our packets, but did you all get to see it?
I looked it up this morning.
It's online.
Okay,
Online?
it's definitely online.
It is.
Well, good.
The other part of that, Ms. Turner, is the police officers have the option to do it. I drive through Windcrest at 20, because Windcrest, the police officers say you're going 21 miles an hour, you're gonna get a ticket. You start ticketing this guy, towing these things out, that'll also fix it.
Well, yeah, he's got a great
I
place
mean,
where he can.
but if they're not gonna tow it or ticket it, I'm gonna drive 40 miles an hour down that 20 mile an hour.
So, yeah, well, it is a 20-mile-an-hour street, just so we understand that.
I'm just saying, if our police officers would be a little bit more enforceful for every one of them that's there, that would help.
Again, dealing mostly with commercial vehicles that got dropped off, we don't know what time of the morning or night they're getting dropped off, and we certainly can't have a police officer sitting there. I think when they're on the regular route, if they go through and they are parked there and they can plaster them and have regular communication with the owners of the storage/U-Haul facility, that in time the U-Haul people can take care of their own customers. We should not have to be ticketing people.
Worked on some of our scanning.
So that's a good picture there of the area we're talking about. Village Drive that goes down to Pat Booker Road and it comes back down and connects with North Boulevard.
On the bottom where you see where the T is, and you go into the left, that's where the apartments carry over. They have parking on that street as well.
Yes, Mr. Jerry.
Well then, if there's some way on this section that we don't have in red, that we can do something where we're saying no commercial parking, because this is just gonna create the parking where a U-Haul comes in, sees big red, no parking, they're gonna park right there where the residents, where we're leaving it open for the residents to park. And we're
Right, I
just
believe
gonna,
that's what Mr. Sheldon had indicated, and we said we would have looked into that by the time we get to our second reading.
Right. Well, that's going to be addressed, Paul.
if that, I was gonna say, if that's just the one section we're talking about.
That is the only section we're discussing,
Okay.
most of us.
Yeah, and for you in the audience, your edification, this is a serious concern that we had when this was proposed to us some years ago. And everyone here was on that council at the time, and we all expressed our concern about that, and we were, let's just leave it the way that it was. We were told that everything was fine. Okay, that they would comply. And so this is a concern that it does happen. And again, we don't know when someone's going to turn in that vehicle or that U-Haul, whatever it may be. Question is now we got to figure out where, and not to cause congestion, and to give those people in the apartments the ability to park on that street. Yes, Mr.
Still
Nelson.
have congestion. When I go around Villas that goes to the post office, that red side is almost fully lined with cars. And sometimes on the other side it's lined too. And it's very difficult to.
Yep, it's a narrow street.
We need to do something.
By the
Yes,
way,
Ms. Foley.
there were no cars parked there today, all day. There was no cars. I thought you did something already.
It's like, whatever, right? It is, you can't, yeah.
Might have been a
You
fluke.
just don't know.
Might have been a fluke.
Okay, remember, this is the first reading, everyone, so these concerns that we've all brought up, Ms. Turner's gonna put this in consideration, so when they present it to us at the next council meeting, hopefully our concerns will be addressed, and we can take it from there, and if we're still not satisfied with everything, we'll go from there. All right, anybody else? Okay. We have a motion and a second, correct? Okay, let's call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Bully.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. That concludes our business for this evening. So now I'll turn it over to our city manager for her comments, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So, you know, Katie and Mallory work very, very hard to please the brides and the mothers of the brides and everybody else who has a relationship with the bride when we have a wedding. And so, you know, they're not new at this. They deal with a lot. They deal with emotions and inebriation and all of the other things that go on with weddings and events. However, they've always strived to provide the best possible service they can for everybody. And so they were quite surprised and thrilled that they actually received 2 awards for this year. The one is The Knot, which is a national firm, wedding firm that does all the high-end weddings and advertisings. So they did recognize Olympia Hill as Best of Weddings, and we were very pleased with that. And then following on that, Wedding Wire gave Olympia Hills Golf Course the Couples Choice Award. That one is of particular interest to us because after the bride and the groom and the mother-in-law and the mother-in-laws, I should say, in most cases, and maybe the father-in-laws, they get to fill out a survey online and send it in. We don't see it. It goes off to some other place. And anyway, overwhelmingly, Olympia Hills received the most positive response and comments for last year, so we also won that award for 2022 as well. And it does provide us with some very unique marketing opportunities and bragging rights, and it's very important for brides. We find that in the millennials, about 81% of them start their wedding by reading online wedding reviews. And of course, the Wedding Wire is the #1 place to go to, so we're hoping that that will provide some dividends. In terms of The Knot, only about 5% of wedding professionals ever win that award. So it really is very prestigious, and we're proud of Katie and Mallory for that. They'll be seeing some changing on our marketing material coming up. Also at the golf course, I believe it's March 2nd is the first happy hour of the year. It is a Mardi Gras theme, and remembering that it is open to the public, to everyone. We do have people that bring their children. I don't know if anybody's ever brought their dog, but you know, probably not because there's food and beverage attached with it. But we do have lots of people that come as families. We do try to be a family-friendly place. And then also at Olympia Hills, we have the Head for the Hills. Those are golf tournaments that are sponsored by the golf course and run by golf course staff. That first event is March 20th. And those usually sell out quickly. And that's all I have.
There's also a Valentine's.
Oh yes, I apologize. I believe it's February 11th. There is a Valentine's event happening at the golf course for couples who would like to go out and have an evening without children. This will be an adults-only event.
You say Wednesday, March 2nd?
Happy hours, I believe, are on
Thursday.
Thursdays.
Yeah, March 3rd.
March 3rd, then it is March 3rd. So
March 2nd is Ash Wednesday.
3-3, okay. So it's 3-3.
Okay.
For those of us that get free ashes.
Ash Wednesday,
Free
yes.
ashes.
Ash Wednesday, then Ash.
All right, thank you, Kim. Appreciate it very much. Paul, you're on first tonight.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, Mr. Rivera, thank you very much for coming and introducing yourself. We as a community do appreciate find out who's out there, and appreciate you coming down. Mr. Buck, welcome to the candidate pool. And I want to address Ms. Hart and Mr. Edwards. Thank you for bringing up. As far as getting things on the agenda, I've got to tell you, if bringing this in would streamline things, I don't have a problem with it or putting on paper, but I do got to tell you that I have at no time have ever felt that I could not come out and get something on the agenda if it deemed important with the council here or running, because the mayor has a say in the agenda, city manager, and just, like I say, personally, I've never had a point where I thought that I couldn't get something on the agenda if I wanted to personally. So, but again, I wouldn't have a problem with that. And that's all I have tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that for a while there when we were doing we've had a lot of comments about our trash service and how we have the at your door type service where if I'm elderly or I'm disabled and I need assistance. And I know that there was a lot of frustration, but I'm going through that now. And I was often told to compare what we have here with some of our sister cities. Well, I'll tell you, Schertz and Selma don't have it because we're trying to get it for my aunt. So instead of them showing up and pulling her trash can down, the city of Selma said call Schertz, city of Schertz said call Republic, Republic said you don't have it. So she and her walker was supposed to walk down a steep driveway. No, what does she do? We take it out and her neighbor pulls it up. So it's, while it's frustrating, I do know that we have those options. I don't know if they're totally fulfilling everybody that we have, but I just want to say that I think that was, at least we have that option. Kudos to Katie and Mallory, that's huge. Those awards are huge for those, to be recognized for those prizes. And then remind everybody to go ahead and cover your pipes because it's going to get cold this week. So make sure that happens. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good, thanks. William?
Nothing tonight, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Nothing to that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't want to discuss singularity or majority about putting things on the agenda, but I would ask the majority tonight to have put on the agenda for the March 1st meeting the pros and cons, the possible costs, and the possible locations for a fire and police substation inside Route 1604.
Okay.
I have a show of hands.
That is his recommendation, and all we need is consensus here. Sure. Consensus to go ahead and put this on the agenda. It's all set?
Thank you.
Okay. Discussion about a potential substation in another location.
Right.
We'll
The
put that on
only
our.
concern I have is he's also asking about cost. He
We
said
may not be
pros
able to
and
do
cons
cost,
and the
but-
cost. So we can't get a cost estimate from anybody in 30 days.
Well, let's put it
It
on the
would require
agenda.
us to get an engineer
Let's put it on the agenda as a discussion item.
for the pros and cons.
Right.
Okay, yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Then
Okay,
maybe
everyone good with that?
maybe action in April, possibly, or we have some course in April.
Can I jump in on that real quick?
Okay, we're going to put this on the agenda. You go ahead and make a comment.
We could look at a recently completed substation for an approximate cost, not an exact, but that way
Right.
it can be on the agenda faster than April, and we don't have to hire an engineer.
Right, if I don't have to get a cost, then I could just call somebody else and say, hey, I know you put a substation in, and I know several cities have
Just
approximately
to
what
give
did you
everybody an
spend?
idea of what the cost
So
may be.
they'll have the cost for the land, the cost
Okay.
for the building, the cost for employees, and the cost for the equipment.
As we say in the military, a whack.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, understand. Very good. All right, everybody good with that? All right, Kim, we'll do that first meeting. Beverly? Dick, do you have anything else?
That's also,
All right,
thank you.
Beverly?
Okay, the first part I think is really kind of cool. If you're wondering who to root for, if you're wanting to know who you're going to root for in Super Bowl, Trey Flowers is a Judson graduate, and he's on the Bengals. How cool is that? Great congratulations to the golf course. And I know that people are looking forward to happy hour. I keep hearing about it, so that's a good thing. Communication. I know there's a lot going on around about that, and there's a lot of communication going on here. I think people need to maybe consider the two-way thing. Maybe look for communication. Look at the Facebook. Look at the city website. It's out there. And there's no issue getting something on the agenda. I wanted to say that without Mr. Neville's idea. Okay, this one is not on the agenda, and I don't know if we can get with it today, but I was wondering why are generators at the library and at the golf course?
I mean, are you asking for discussion?
I'm asking for that to be addressed, however it can be addressed. It's not on the agenda.
Generators?
Why are there generators at the golf course? Why does the golf course and library need generators?
That was covered way back when.
Well, I can answer that, I think, in terms of what we've already discussed, and I think that was because we wanted to be prepared for contingency, and those particular facilities could be used as shelters, temporary shelters. And that's why the generators were put on that, with the funding that was available for the, excuse me, the pandemic relief funds. That's the main reason they did that.
That's what I thought. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, thanks. I'm
Okay.
done.
Okay, just got a couple of items. Obviously, Byrd mentioned that we're going to be in a heck of a cold spell coming starting tomorrow night. So make sure you take all the precautions that you need to. Cover those pipes, keep drips going on maybe in your faucets, because we're going to be down in the 20s at least 4 mornings coming up, and at least with the prognosticators. Weathermen are not always right, but they've been pretty close lately. So we do need to take those precautions. And I can tell you that the city is very prepared. If a situation similar to last year were to happen, we are prepared to take that on. And we've really worked very hard and diligently at that, to making sure that we are prepared for another crisis that may occur within our community. So, but we need to take our own individual precautions as well. Ms. Turner?
I might add, I know that the San Antonio mayor and CPS Energy and SAWS are having some public information they're putting out. I'd just like to remind everybody, we are not on SAWS water. Please don't follow SAWS regulations. If your pipes freeze, you call the city, you don't call SAWS, and if SAWS puts out a boil water issue, you don't listen to SAWS, you listen to Universal City. It's very confusing people, because they send out the reverse 911 call, which they did during the last freeze.
Right.
And we had a maelstrom of people calling, wanting to know why SAWS was telling them to boil water, and we had to explain they're not on SAWS water.
Right. Very good. Thanks for clarifying that point. Okay, a couple of other things. There is a ribbon cutting coming up in Mod. You know where Laundry is, right there in the corner of Pat Booker and UC Boulevard? UC Boulevard, isn't it? Yeah. Great place. So I hope we can all participate in that like we did as much as we could the last couple. And winter averaging, for all of you out there, and council knows this, but we're in the time of winter averaging for what the water rates will be coming up in the future. That's going on right now. In each one of the areas where you live, there was a different start and stop time for that, so be cognizant. I know we published it on the website, we published it in the gateway. Just be familiar that this sets the rates for the coming year. So if everybody is still within that time frame, so just be cognizant of that. The more water you use, the more it could affect you in the future. So, and we have a granddaughter living with us that likes to take lots of showers. So she's had a little discussion with grandma and grandpa. Not that she can't water to take a shower, don't get me wrong, of course. But just reminding her that we do have to be, this is a conservation time if we need to, because it will affect our rates in the future. So, having said that, again, the wedding awards are wonderful. That's a terrific opportunity. And I will say one other thing about one of our council members. He is retiring this Sunday, Mr. Tom Maxwell. He served his country in uniform and out of uniform as a civil servant for a long time. And he's made that decision to go on with the rest of his life, and we're really proud of Tom and what he's accomplished for his country and for his country. And we're gonna recognize him coming up this Sunday, and it's well deserved. And I appreciate all that Tom has done, obviously, on this council. And I'll make some comments at his ceremony as well.
How about a round of applause for him right now?
It's wonderful when you can serve your country in dual capacities over a number of years, and his number of years is in the 40s, almost 50s. 51, okay. Wow. That's a great accomplishment. So thank you, Tom, for what you've done, and we'll recognize you on Sunday. So everyone else, thank you for coming this evening. This meeting is now 7:24, and this meeting is now adjourned. Thanks again for coming.
Wait, just hold on for a second. I got a little something I thought about with the poly carts and the issues of people having to get the carts out to the street. What if we find volunteer groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church volunteer groups, other youth groups, something like that? Neighbors, put it on the Facebook page to say, who's looking for volunteer hours? A lot of schools require people to do volunteer hours, right, of their freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. What if we can find an alternative to this, right? It looks like we're fighting an uphill battle potentially of getting any relief from waste management or from city council in order to get this done. What if we find an alternative? Let's think outside the box to try to see if we can, you see what I'm saying? Because if there's neighborhood youngsters around the neighborhood that would volunteer to come over and move their neighbors' trash cans in exchange for a batch of cookies, something like that, you know, would that be a motivating factor potentially for somebody? For the scouts, for the youth groups, anything like that? Just a thought to put out there.